think the environment has been changed.
What we're saying is have a heart.
We've got to be able to regenerate our
There'll
economy.
be people who are kind, people who are cruel, but that's life. You can be bigoted about bigots. I'm fine with that.
Relationship and what's wrong with Singaporeans.
There's this committee. Are you a member of the Committee for Strengthening National Service under the Ministry of Defence? And the committee has made quite a few recommendations in improving national service. I would just like to find out whether there has been any change in the perception of national service, the desirability of national service.
I think I would have preferred today compared to the past, because we have more safety mechanism in training methods. Last time they were like gangsters, pushing you around, and you do everything that they ask us to do.
Did it make you stronger men?
I mean, I've not been with them, so I cannot compare. But I think now they are more careful, and I think they turn out with less injuries.
Okay.
I would say that because now we are dealing with what do you call that, Gen Y or Gen whatever, right? And therefore, they have to be treated quite differently, in order to bring out the best in them. I think in the past it's a lot rougher. I don't know whether that was the best method, even for that time. But I think for this generation, I think the only way is that you have to convince them that that what we're doing is the way to go, right? Rather than we force it down your throat, we convince you first, and then you're quite willing to go along. And a lot of things that we do actually doesn't require a lot of harassment, I think in those days we're talking about waking up in the middle of the night, change parade, that those really necessary to develop a very disciplined army. I doubt so. So it's a matter of effectiveness. What's the most effective method of getting the best out of our...
And what sort of effectiveness are you talking
well,
about?
I would say it's a lot more using your brains rather than your brawn. It's a lot more convincing. So in terms of method, it's a lot more convincing. But in terms of skills, it's about mental skills rather than physical skills.
I think when you talk of that, I must quote this, because there was a competition between the regulars from Australia and the United States in the friendly tri-nation competition. This was in 2209. And our National Servicemen actually distinguished themselves when a Leopard tank crew of 3 NS full-time servicemen, led by a young regular, having only been trained for 6 months, the team beat all the regulars from Australia and the United Nations. So perhaps we are on the right path in the type of training that we provide for our NSmen.
And I think a lot of our young people nowadays are actually quite serious about looking good, physically healthy, and all that. Even though they are not forced to do so, but they still do it. I mean, I don't have the numbers, but I'm quite sure that there are people who would go to the gym even when they don't have to. I think that is really a change in lifestyles. Because in the past, I think people don't do a lot of that, but nowadays I think they do.
That's true. Okay, let me wrap up now, very quickly. In the case of women, we feel that there should be no gender distinction. That if you want to have national service, then you should actually conscript women and men, but it's important that they get placed in their right roles so there's a proper fit and they don't get frustrated when they do national service. As far as PRs are concerned, in a way, the sort of large proportion of people who have given up their citizenship in order not to do national service, it's a healthy development in that it seeds out people who do not have a love or loyalty for Singapore, and we don't want them in our defence forces. But it is also important when we look at that to ensure that we develop in our PRs, in whom we have invested a lot and who have also contributed to the country, we invest in them, especially the first generation, the ability to develop, to inculcate in them a love for the country, a loyalty for the country, that translates down to their children, to the second generation, so that they not only speak and talk like Singaporeans, but they feel that this is their country. and that they would not think about wanting to leave to escape national service, because this doesn't happen with our local people at all. And of course, of the prejudice of hiring national servicemen, I think that this is an unfortunate development. But again, there has to be incentives which the Ministry of Defence is looking into, and which some of them have been contributed by our panelist Ellen Goh. Things like tax breaks, more options for staff to keep in touch while they're doing their military reservist training, creation of an online portal to advise people of when their staff will be called up, and to build in actually the demands of doing the reservist training to be more sympathetic to continuing their job and mitigating the disruption. But perhaps the most interesting thing is the attitude we have towards national service. I think that national service is a transformational experience, and just by the quick reaction that we have had here of the 8 men, it is true that not many will volunteer if they are left to volunteer, and I think that it just makes logic that they have to be a conscription in order for us to build a defense force that can defend the country for the greater good. Of the 8 people here, there were only 2 who were willing to volunteer. 2 would not volunteer. The remaining 6 said they would not volunteer, but after their national service experience, they said they would. So I think that we have to recognize that the national service is a transformational experience and part of the rites of passage for our men, and hopefully maybe opened up to our women in the future. With that, I thank you for attending our discussion tonight, and good night.